Welcome to the Diary of a Muse podcast. I'm Tess Day, and I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here with me, embarking on this journey of discovery and transformation. Right, Tehilla, give us your quote.
People may spend their whole lives climbing the ladder of success only to find, once they reach the top, that the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. This is by Thomas Merton.
Wow, that's a really, there's a lot in those words, isn't there? So I'm really excited to sort of dive into that. Tell us why you chose that, and how does it resonate for you with the work you do?
You know, I was thinking whether I should choose it or not because I really like that quote. On the other hand, people usually like to choose more positive things. And when I look at that quote, it can be a bit depressing. Um, what I do is what's very important for me, and it's first of all to follow my calling of the soul, which is, I think, basically the purpose of each and every one of us in our lives. And that's what I try to help people do: connect to their higher selves and just follow that calling, follow that inner voice. Sometimes people forget about that inner voice; they ignore it, and the more you ignore your inner voice, it becomes kind of softer and softer till it's
Yeah.
almost non-existent.
Don't they actually say sometimes hindsight is 20/20 vision?
Yeah,
It's
and
always when we look back that we go, oh, I wish I knew then what I know now, you know?
yeah, and I think the biggest hindsight is after we pass away.
Yes.
That's when you have clarity and you see that actually everything that you've been through in your life was there in order to help you develop and evolve. Like, one of the things that I like to avoid is regrets. So I think if we bear that in mind, and we understand that maybe success is not necessarily what we think or define or what society defines. It's more the journey that we do, how we evolve on a spiritual and on a soul level. Then we know what to focus on, because climbing a ladder is takes a lot of energy and a lot of resources and a lot of time. And to find that you've been leaning it on the wrong wall once you've reached the top, I think is devastating.
And I think, you know, there's so many people that we speak to these days that get to that point in their 50s, 60s sometimes, because it's after the journey when they're starting to realize that what they envisaged isn't quite playing out the way they thought. And now it seems like it's too late. But is it too late?
I think, in Hebrew we say that as long as the candle is burning, you can fix. That's
Everything.
very simplistic translation, but as long as you're alive, the reason why you're actually alive is because there's still a chance that you can actually evolve. You pass
Yeah.
away when that's it, when you're done.
Yeah.
So the reason you're given life is because you have this opportunity to evolve and grow and just listen to your soul and do your and to your calling.
Yeah. So, guys, we've got Tehilla Aloni with
Yeah.
us today from bioforbiz.com. And let me just tell you a little bit about what I have discovered about her background. She is a former Israeli judo champion. She's trained alongside Olympic medalists. She's a former IDF boot camp instructor. You'll have to tell us what that is, Tehilla. She is CEO of an access control company, a homeopath, and an extrasensory business consultant. So she has over 20 years experience, and we're going to tap into this today, and we're just going to have an interesting conversation. The one big question I have for you, Tehilla, today is bio-orgonomy. Let's get that out of the way. Tell us what that is, because that was the one thing that really popped up for me. I'd never heard of that before, didn't know what it was, and I thought, this is something I think I need to know about.
Thank you. Thank you, Tess. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. So thank you for having me. Bio-orgonomy. Bio-orgonomy is an extrasensory technique in most spiritual practices. So um, everything has energy fields that support and sustain it, whether it's a person, a plant, a relationship, an animal, a bank account, contract, anything you can think of. Now, these energy fields, they support and sustain their subject. However, if these energy fields become disrupted, that's when we start seeing problems. People become sick, The bank account is losing money, the business is not going well, people will, argue, they fight in the relationships, etc. So what I do is that in bio-orgonomy, I use my eyelids as an indicator. What does that mean? Just imagine that you have a light and you can decide when it goes on and when it flickers on and off, what it means. So I can decide that if I move my hand horizontally and my eyelid flickers, then the answer is yes. Or if I move my hand vertically and my eyelid flickers, the answer is no. Or if, for example, I have a woman that's, I work with and one of her employees was stealing money from her. So I could just go over the employees and my eyelid and see that my eyelid will fit on the employees who was actually stealing the money. And that's how we would know who it was. And afterwards, once I did it, I actually got the image or the information through my extrasensory abilities that the reason he was stealing the money was because his son was sick and he needed the money for medication. And the solution that was given, again, I try to connect to a higher source, was that solution that enabled everyone to grow, because that's actually our purpose in life. So the whole idea is that I am given this information, this extrasensory information, and these sensory tools in order to help people grow and evolve, which is purpose that we're actually here. I think the main difference between a person who's I'd say evolved or unevolved is whether that person understands that everything that happens is in order to help them evolve. So in order to help them grow. So once you have that mindset that actually that everything that happens is actually for the best and is tailor-made for you individually, for your situation, to give you an opportunity to grow, that's when you make that huge leap in consciousness and in mindset, which allows you to look at things differently, assess things differently, make better choices, have a better emotional attitude. I think that is actually the key for growth, and for happiness.
And they say happiness is not an outside job.
Yeah, actually, it just reminds me of another quote that I would have given. Like, is none are as blind as those who do not want to see, which is
Yes.
very relevant.
Yeah, it is. And the thing is, sometimes we think we see when it's too late, One of the things that I notice with clients that I have, people that I speak to on the street as well, and in meetings, networking, wherever, is that sometimes we're so afraid of something that we can't see, that we keep ourselves small rather than going out to discover and find out what that fear is, because fear is quite an invisible thing.
I agree. However, I think it takes practice in order to identify fear. The more practice you have in identifying fear, it's like a clue. It's like a clue that there's something really good behind that door. So if you're afraid of opening that door, it actually means that there's something there. There's a reason why you're afraid. And once you resolve that, that's the next stage of your evolution.
So what is one thing somebody can do to begin that process of becoming aware of what the fear is? Because I know lives are busy. I think that's why you do what you do. That's why I do what I do. People are in constant chaos in many ways, trying to meet many different objectives, living life with family, there's work, there's friendships, there's social media, there's a lot of things going on. So how does somebody begin to center in on what fear is dictating in the background for them?
I think you've raised very important points, and the main thing being that our lives are full of noise, and there's so much noise that if we focus and we make room for that noise, we lose touch of our inner voice, which is very quiet. So, like, just for example, just before we started our interview, I was in a hurry and in a rush trying to organize everything and be on time. And it's only when I sat down that I realized that I was thirsty. And and our life is similar. That's just an example, but everything is like that. It's only when you're sort of you're quiet, maybe before you go to sleep, or it's those quiet times that when you make room to actually look at yourself and see what are your needs. I recognize a negative emotion, and then I have to stop and start thinking and looking at what actually created that emotion, because my initial instinct might be that that emotion was triggered by something, by a certain thing, but actually it's not. It wasn't triggered by my children. It was triggered by something before that, and my children just happened to be happened to be in the way.
Yeah, in the line of
So
fire in a way.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So just taking that time to listen. And I would say that our inner voice is like a child. And right, with the more you encourage a child to, so if they draw something, you say, wow, that's so beautiful. If they make a play and you encourage them, the more they'll want to do that. So the more you encourage your inner voice and you give it space and respect it and you listen to it, the louder it becomes, and it provides you with more and more information and guidance.
I know some people who avoid that at all cost because they're more afraid of what that inner voice is telling them. They're too afraid to actually face what they think is a big issue, which I presume is bigger in your head than it is in reality. It is about going out and being in nature. It is about being and doing things that you really enjoy. Would you say that that is a good way for somebody to begin the process, being still?
I'll tell you regarding what you said about people being afraid to listen to their inner voice. You know, I come from the world of business. So the thing is, this is the thing. At some point, people will pay the price. Now, the question is whether they will pay the price with interest, meaning that they've used that inner voice. So you've got the inner voice and the price that needs to be paid. So you have that pain, but the more you know the inner voice, that price incurs interest. So the pain keeps on growing and growing. And not only you think you're delaying the payment, no, so you have that underlying kind of level of stress and pain and discomfort and dissatisfaction which is overshadowing your entire life and making people, you know, make bad decisions and affecting their environment and affecting everything. So you're paying a price, but you're paying it in installments with interest, and it's just going to get worse and worse. And the reason it's going to get worse and worse is because the universe is actually trying to push you to a place where you say, okay, this price of staying the way I am is so much higher than the price of making a change. So there's another quote, which I don't know by who, but that's like, which is people grow either from inspiration or from desperation. So price will need to be paid. So either you pay it for that pain in a safe environment with guidance, and in order to minimize it, and with people that will help you grow, and then you just move through it and go on to the next level, or you kind of just go through your life and and just kind of waste. I think it sounds bad, but you're wasting time, and you're just suffering, and there's no need to do that.
But sometimes some people need a big loud crash to get their
Uh,
attention.
Again, it's either desperation or inspiration. People
Mm-hmm.
grow from inspiration to desperation. So it's better not to reach a point where where one needs that big crash. It's try to talks to us all the time. Our inner voice, our surrounding environment, the larger surroundings, what's happening in the world, constantly getting information and guidance. The question is whether we choose to see that guidance and we choose to act on it.
Yeah.
But at some point we will have to grow. There's it will just a question of how long it will take, and how painful it will be, and how much we will resist.
That makes me think of when I was young and we would do that exercise at school where you took a bean and you put it between some cotton wool and you watered
Yeah.
it. And slowly but surely, as tiny as that bean was, it started pushing that cotton wool up. It was determined it was going to grow. Obviously, if we stopped watering it, it would die. So it's a little bit like that. It looks like cotton wool is soft and fluffy, but in fact, when it's compacted with water and it's dense, it has a weight to it. But that fresh young sapling was determined to find the light, and that's all of us. We have so many things that happen to us in our life. We have good experiences, we have bad experiences, we have happy celebrations, and then we have things that really hit us, to our core. And it's almost like there's this individual journey taking place while we're in the midst of hundreds of people around us, or well, if we're that lucky to be surrounded by that many people. But sometimes it's lots of different energies around us that impact us as well. And, I've read a book recently called Who's in Your Room by Ivan Meisner. And, although he's talking about from a business perspective, I think for all of us, it's who are we spending time with, and how is that impacting our journey? And where I'm leading to with this is a question to you. You are a businesswoman, you are the CEO of an access control company, you also have a very nice balance with spirituality and energy and understanding the human condition. How do you find that people in the business world respond to that balance between hard business, the theory of business, versus what people perceive as softer, more sort of enlightened approach?
That's a very interesting question. I don't give it much thought. I just sort of intuitively know how much I can be open about the spiritual side with
Okay.
certain people, and how much I keep to myself. So it's always this, I see it's always like this fine kind of balance, which I've been doing it for so many years. Part of me, I don't even notice that I'm doing that. However, our reality is actually a reflection of who we are. So I am fortunate to draw into my life business women, especially, who have that spiritual side and that spiritual understanding, knowledge that we all have. It's just a question of how much room we want to give to
Yeah.
spirituality.
I hear you. I think it is one of those subjects that some people just warm to and other people are maybe unsure about, so they don't even
Yeah.
go there. But for someone who's listening who maybe has never sort of stepped into that ring, it's an interesting journey for them. What would a key thing be that somebody would pick up in their life right now that might give them an indication that this could be a solution to sort of combine more of an inner journey with whatever is being dictated to them on the outside?
So I think, again, that's a great question. Asking good questions is the key to success in life. Something happens, like in business, you constantly have unexpected things happen, and things seemingly go wrong, and it's not what you expected. And it's knowing to ask the right questions, which is not making sure that the questions aren't from a victim perspective. Okay, why does it keep on happening to me, etc., etc. And ask why it keeps on happening to you, but not from a victim place. It's more like, what can I learn from this? Why is this happening to me? If I know that it's for my growth and actually for my best interest, why would such a thing happen to me? What do I need to learn from this? What is good in this situation? How can I grow from this? So by asking the right questions, you're already setting yourself up for success, because your conscious and subconscious mind are already focused on looking for the good and positive things. And then they are actually one of the tools that enable you to create reality and manifest things. So by training your mind to look on positive, that's how you create positive energy and positive resonance in your life, and you create positive reality.
Yeah, I mean, I fully agree with you on that one. What another quote seems to be the chat of quotes today, but where your attention goes, your energy flows.
Yeah, that's a good one.
And I've often seen for myself as well, I know immediately when there's an activity or something I'm doing that is not working for me. It should be an indication that I'm doing things that don't serve me, versus when I am in a place where I'm happy, I'm content, and I'm on my path, there's a different energy that comes from me. And I think when you're working with bio-orgonomy, you're probably identifying certain of those things when you're working with a client, that highlighted energy, that sort of indication that they might not be able to see yet. That's the right direction. And I think we move too fast to notice that we felt so good in that. And I want more of that in my life, versus that stressed me out. That is like just such a hard slog. Why am I doing it? Why do I persist? But we're tied in, aren't we, to paying the bills, to being upstanding, to the expectations we think other people have of us. So how do we break that cycle?
Again, a great question.
You're bringing it out of me today.
I've actually been discussing this with a friend of mine past few days, because I was just showing my kids a video of children in the Shaolin Temple and how they train, and I was so happy to show them and show them what you can actually achieve with discipline and perseverance and hard work. And I was talking to my friend, we were discussing about enjoying the journey. And I was thinking that when I was training in judo, I didn't enjoy the journey. And she asked me, is that what you want to give your daughter? Because my daughter was all excited and worked up. She's 7 and she wants to become a Shaolin monk. And actually, what I realized was that it's so important to follow your bliss. And I was always about sacrificing the present in order to achieve in the future. And one of the lessons, the important lessons I'm still learning, is that one doesn't have to sort of impinge on the others. So you can have them both if you just listen and do things. It's a very fine balance. So I think that's important.
Yeah, because life is never going to be about having this room full of doing all the things that you love doing all the time, and you get to not be involved in the things you don't enjoy. And like you say, it is a balance. It's finding that whatever you're doing is coming from the truest part of you, so that you're bringing your best self to every situation, whether you love it or not. It's the energy you're bringing to it.
That's true. And as you were talking, I just had a realization that it's not about loving everything you do. It's loving yourself as you do it.
Oh, I love that.
So
I
that
like
was
that.
yeah, it just came now. So I'm like,
Yeah.
wow, that's a good one.
That is fantastic. So Tehilla, what really the thing that got you onto this journey? I mean, where did it start? What was the catalyst that for you opened these doors?
Oh, that's a huge question.
I know, keep it as simple as you want.
I didn't really know. I think it's like what I realize is that as life is a journey, as I'm following my bliss, each step of the way reveals the next step. And my capacity for joy and for bringing light and good into the world increases. And as I grow and evolve, and my perception and my consciousness expands, like the things I'm seeing and understanding today, even compared to 3 months ago, are immeasurable. So it's just life is such an amazing and exciting journey. There's things in the universe that we can't even imagine, and it's so amazing and great. And I'm just so excited about discovering them. So it's just one day at one moment at a time.
Yeah, I mean, I know for me, it is a very similar journey. It just unfolds. It's like you wake up one
Exactly.
morning and you have a thought and you follow that thought. Then you have another idea. Then you get down to the business, and then you take some more space, go for a walk, have a cup of tea, whatever your favorite beverage is. And it's like our minds never stop. You know, they are busy. I know before we started this, you said, oh, we need to calm that mind down a little bit, Tess. But the thing is, our minds are active, but I guess the more we understand who we are as people, the more we can direct those thoughts and not control them, but just guide them to where we feel good. So let's go back to your quote. And I want to read it this time because it is so powerful, even though you said to me it's maybe not the most inspirational, positive quote of the day. People may spend their whole lives climbing the ladder of success only to find, once they reach the top, that the ladder is leaning against the wrong wall.
You do such a better job of reading that than me.
Well, I maybe practiced a little bit before we came on, but the thing for me is, you know, is there such a thing as a wrong wall, or is it the way we perceive the journey we've taken connected to what we thought the future would be? So if somebody's waking up today and they're listening to this and they had this epiphany or this realization, sherbet, my ladder is leaning against the wrong wall. What now? What is one bit of advice you'd give?
The way I see it is that everything we've been through, and especially the challenges, are there in order to help us develop our unique skill set. And our unique skill set is our ability to bring our unique light into the world, because each and every one of us is different, and each and every one of us has a unique light to bring into the world. So every part of the journey is important and has helped us develop and get to actually know ourselves better, which is also very important. And it's, on the one hand, we have choice. On the other hand, we don't have free choice. The freedom of choice is like a huge spiritual issue. So there's a reason why we've been, so to speak, asleep until a certain point, and there's a reason why we woke up now. It's not for us to start thinking what that reason is. It's just having faith and knowing that everything happens at the perfect timing. And now is how are we going to make the best of the situation that we're facing?
One little step at a time. And how does support, how does reaching out to the right person help guide somebody through a challenging time? Because there's a lot of help out there. There are a lot of people saying, I can help you with this, or I solve this problem. But how does an individual know how to go about choosing or deciding to ask for someone to come into their space and support them through the steps to take them out of this, maybe what some might feel is a dark space sometimes?
So, in Hebrew, there's a saying that a prisoner doesn't release himself from jail. We can't. The whole thing is that we'll, I think society and as humans, we're built in a way that no one person has all the answers. It's all about interdependence. It's not dependence or independence and interdependence. Each one of us is a very important piece of the puzzle for the whole and in order to help different individuals. So actually acknowledging the fact that we can't do it alone is a huge step. And so once we realize that we can't do it alone, that's when we start searching for that one person or the people we need, which are actually our support system, which changes, by the way, all the time. So and per situation. So it's all about following that inner voice, how some person makes you feel. If you feel that when you interact with a certain person, you feel a sense of expansion and that your perspective is a positive perspective, that's a very good indication. If a person makes you feel guilty or small, or puts you in either puts you in a victim mode or makes room for you to start blaming others, makes you small, that's an indication that maybe that's not the right person.
Run for the hills. But it's good to know these things. They seem, and sometimes they don't actually show up as clear as that. Sometimes you don't actually notice that sort of someone in your space is actually doing that until you become aware that it is a thing that exists.
Most people, who are in those positions are also very good manipulators.
Yes, it sort
So
of creeps up on you and then boom.
yeah, there are three indications. I'm just trying to, I hope I remember all of them. So one is if you have mixed messages from a person, that's a problem. Person's reactions are disproportionate, that's a problem. Let me just, I'm just thinking in Hebrew. And or if they fickle, if a person is fickle in their communication or they're inconsistent, that's also an indication that there's a problem. Because what those three things do in a relationship, they undermine the trust, and trust is such a basic thing. So if you have those three things, it can be parents to children doing it can be in any relationship. If you have those elements, then that undermines the trust, which is so basic.
Yeah, and it's really weird because trust was the word that was coming up for me just literally sort of a sentence before you mentioned it, because it is the fundamental foundation for everything, right? If we are afraid or we don't trust ourselves first, then we're not going to be able to see how and who we can trust another. So I've just started reading The Speed of Trust by Mr. Covey Jr. I forget his first name, apologies. But it is just such an interesting unfolding of what is actually quite a simple thing, but we are complex characters, right? An individual is complex. If you think about energy and all the things that make the miracle of an individual, and then there's that emotional person inside, that emotional aspect to us that has been through lots of things. One of the things I think back to growing up is having conversations with my two sisters, and we will all often meet up and then come up with a memory that we had from growing up. Each one of us have completely different feedback on that same event. And in certain situations, you'll see one of us would have seen it positively, one of us would have seen it negatively. And maybe because we're three, one of us would have kind of been neither here nor there. Just it was, you know. And that has always fascinated me for years, because it really goes to show that we are all having our own unique experience. And through those experiences, we determine whether we can trust another or not. And then that links to so many other factors in a business organization. When we want people to work together as a team, to trust each other, it's very challenging to sometimes bring that sense together. So do you have any experiences there where you could maybe highlight?
I think that's a very good point, especially in business environments. What I'll give you an example that I've was working with this woman who has a cosmetics oil company, and the business wasn't making money, and she was trying to figure out why, because she seemed to be doing everything right. And when I checked using Bio-orgonomy, what I saw was that at the time her husband wasn't making enough money, and he was subconsciously preventing her business from making money because he was threatened by her success. So what I did using Bio-orgonomy, I could see it actually sat on like an ancestral thing with him, and also so I could clear that, and I also cleared the elements that she had, which enabled this to happen, because it always takes two to tango. And the solution that came was that she should make him feel like he's an integral part of the business. Therefore, the success of the business is his success. So she asked his opinion, and she gave him that feeling. And then not only was the business making more money, but their relationship improved. And that taught me a very important lesson. And that lesson was that in order to manifest something, we have to send a coherent message to universe, not only us, all the key stakeholders in our lives, whether it's about business partners, families, etc. And the best way to do that is if we align our interests with a higher good. And then it's all about aligning interests. Now, in a corporation, it's very important. And I'm actually working on a workshop now with a woman who's a consultant from the world of business and see a customer experience and team building and leadership development. It's very important to recognize that individuals have their own interests. The safety is important. They want to be valued. They have their own set of interests, which is usually it's like this basic parcel that we all need. Mm-hmm. And then there's the interest of the business. Unless you manage to align all these interests, you'll have people consciously or subconsciously charging the objectives or that are actually the agenda of the business, because it doesn't align with their personal interests, and personal interests will always come first because they're so basic. So as someone who owns a business, it's very important to recognize that and make sure that everything is aligned.
Such a good bit of advice.
Thank you.
I think so many times, maybe even I've been at fault for it, but talking about company values, when we're recruiting, we're looking to recruit people that align with the company values and that. But it's still very high level and very business focused, rather than, well, time is money, right? So getting to below the surface with people, pulling out what their driving force is, what their passion is. It might take you a little bit longer to find the right people, but it is important for both sides that the right people are in the right places, working with the right organizations. That's where productivity skyrockets. We have many examples in the world with big companies that have a lot of visibility, and you can see where the culture and looking after the people has been integral to the success of the organization. So if you rewind that back, you take it back to a household, a family unit is like a business as well. What is everybody's different agenda? What is everybody individually working towards? But what is the center core that brings us all together? And are we all buying into that same feeling? Is it authentic? Do I feel it? Can I speak up? So I really like that. Thank you.
I agree. It reminds me of last week I went to this hardware store and I was buying paint. I bought paint for the house and everything. Mm-hmm. And I was very proud of myself buying paint. And it was this hardware store in a city near where I live. And the service was outstanding. As soon as I got in, walked in the door, someone approached me and said, "How can I help?" And when I asked for help and I wanted to buy something, he went to the shelf and he handed it over to me. And when they were just, everyone was so helpful and so kind, and there was such a good atmosphere. So I was talking to the person who was in charge of mixing the paint. And we're chatting and everything. And I told him, "Listen, the service here is just amazing. Why? What makes the service here so good?" And he told me, first of all, there's no competition between the salespeople, the sales staff. Mm-hmm. And that made me think, because I say in a corporate environment, you want everyone to be competing, so people actually creates the drive. But no, it was actually the lack of competition, in addition to other factors, but that was the most interesting for me, the lack of competition, which created this really good, sort of safe and nurturing environment, which allowed everyone to be really relaxed and forthcoming and open and helpful.
Yeah.
So that was just and then I went to the woman who manages the shop, and I told her, who owns the shop, and she was sitting right there, and I told her, listen, this is the best service I've seen, well done. And she said, we've been putting a lot of work and effort into making it that way, and they did a great job.
Yeah, because I've been on both sides of the fence, so I know it from both sides. We want to show our best self, but it's also in my last interview, we spoke about doing whatever you're doing, whether somebody's watching or not, shouldn't make a difference. And it's that same thing. But if you feel inside that you're valued, if you feel inside that you don't have to step over somebody to achieve something, whether it's your own bonus or whatever, you're going to create teamwork, right? And this is what everybody talks about, teamwork. Let's work as a team. But it does start from the top down.
It does. And I think that it's very good to adopt the perspective that you're always being watched. And the most important, I'd say, entity that's watching you is a divine entity, which is so much more important than, people watching you, I think.
Yes,
So.
absolutely. So I just touched on, it starts at the top, whether you want to talk the top of a business or if you want to talk top beyond what we can actually even imagine. If a CEO, and you are one, so I think you can speak from a valid place of experience, if they are having key challenges, and most CEOs probably have somebody that they're working with alongside, sort of this silent partner, this mentor or peer, where they can have an outlet, because it's a very lonely place when you're leading an organization, whether it's an organization of 2 or 2,000. What happens if somebody is finding themselves in that position, but they don't know where to turn? How would they go about seeking out that person? I know you alluded to something earlier about, finding that person that makes you feel that you can elevate your energy. But what if you still sense you're not keen to sort of fully reach out and say, I need help? Imposter syndrome.
The main thing here is humility, okay?
Mm.
Understanding that we're all learning in life. It's all about lessons. We're all students, and we have our strong points and we have our weak points, and that's the way it's built. That's the way it's supposed to be. And once we allow ourselves, like I said earlier, the first thing to recognize is that we can't do it ourselves. We need help. And it's okay. That's the way it's supposed to be. And that humility allows room for the most amazing people and things to come into our lives. So there's no point in fighting that. That's like putting the line against the wrong wall. trying to do things on your own, not asking for help. First thing is just having that humility and being authentic, and also acknowledging that it's part of the journey.
So who's been your greatest inspiration I'm sure it's not just one person, but what person
so
sort of
many.
what person sparks in your mind when I ask you that question?
Just as you asked, there were a few people, but I think it's my late grandmother.
Why?
From what I understand, like there's a special relationship between grandchildren and grandparents. It's this unconditional love, which just focuses on the good.
Yes.
And it's less challenging, so there's just room for love. And I think she provided me with that unconditional love and safety, and feeling that she accepts me and loves me the way I am and encourages me to grow. And I think that's so important, to have at least one person like that in your life, especially when you're young.
It's another very interesting topic, because I grew up with 2 grannies, and they taught me all interesting things, how to knit, how to bake, how to cook, and just play and have fun, while my mother and my father did the hard job of trying to teach me the difference between right and wrong.
Yeah.
And so I rebelled there, and I went in like a little angel to granny. When I had my kids, I moved away from my family, and for some time there was that sense of guilt that my kids wouldn't have grandparents to give them that layer that I got. And by magic, we had neighbors that moved in across the road that were the perfect age of that grandparent said. And for a time, there was this sense that we had this adopted grandparent
That's amazing.
hierarchy in our life, and the kids got to benefit from that. And yeah, I love that story, because sometimes we so forget that there's this wisdom in that journey of the new shoot and the weathered tree
Yeah.
coming together to sort of, act as guidance, while the middle branch is just fighting to grow. So
That's very well
yeah,
said.
thank you. This is really interesting. And again, I feel like I'm coming away, and I hope our listeners are coming away with more questions than answers. This podcast is definitely not about solving things. It's about reawakening. It's about going back, reflecting on what we've spoken about today, and then writing down some questions and, just exploring what this might mean for you as a listener. So Tehilla, thank you so much for just touching on some really beautiful pointers today. And I love that your quote wasn't all sunshine and roses, because sometimes, as we know in life, it's the challenges that grow us, not the rainbow. The rainbow is the sign where we've done some work, but sometimes we need to pick up that passion, that dream, that desire, or that problem and sit with it for a while and find a solution. So thank you so much for being with us today.
Thank you for having me. And you just reminded me of another quote.
Go for it. Let's end it on a quote again.
Life is in Hebrew, but I'm translating it. Life is like riding a bicycle.
Uh-huh.
If it's difficult, it means you're going up.
And sometimes we only get to free wheel if we've climbed, right?
Exactly.
So that's amazing. Thank you so much for being with us today. I'm sure you've loved the wisdom that Tehilla Aloni has shared with you. Get that pen and paper out, make those notes, or just sit there and contemplate what might have sparked for you through this conversation. And if you would like to reach out to Tehilla and ask her anything else, or inquire about what she does and how she can perhaps help you, then please don't hesitate to do that. We'll have all her details available for you in the base of this podcast. So Tehilla, thank you for joining us. Next time, I will dive deep into one of the aspects that are really resonated with me on today's conversation, and we'll see if we can just take it one notch down, or one notch up, shall I say. So we'll be back very soon. Thanks for being with us. Bye for now.